Coaches Take on Work is a community of coaches sharing our perspectives on work today. Come for the spicy takes and stay for the quick tools and tips. Find everything from best practices in management and leadership to our thoughts on trending topics in work and some fun things you may not be expecting.
Well, can't all be funny every day of our lives.
No,
That's just the way it is.
Jaclyn's like a walking comedian.
With her fun examples of SMART goals.
Yeah. Well,
Oh yeah. Goals are fun. Goals are fun. That should be the takeaway.
There we go. All right, let's get into it. Today we're talking about fun goals, but specifically with goals, 2 tools to make goals specific, impactful, and measurable. So we've all talked about goals a lot in work. I'm going to give you a couple of tools you can take away and start applying tomorrow. So we'll be discussing SMART from George Duran, and you may or may not have heard of the tool SMART before. If you've already used it in the past, I greatly encourage you consider how you're using it, how it's impactful, because I am sure we'll share some new ways of thinking about it today. And the other tool is Lead and Lag Measures by Franklin Covey, and that really helps with the measurement piece. So SMART and Lead and Lag Measures sort of be our additional tools to make goals impactful and effective today. My name is Chelsea Side. I am one of the coaches of Coaches Take on Work. I'm the chief coach and consultant in talent practice, which is my talent development practice, where I help leaders turn their ideas into actions to achieve their goals. So Anna and Jaclyn, I'll let you all introduce yourselves and share a little bit more about why you like this topic.
Who goes first? Jaclyn, rock,
I
paper,
think you.
scissors? Okay, cool. So my name is Anna Lati, and I'm the founder of Talent Squared, and I focus on coaching leaders and managers at all levels of the organization. And my strong belief is that with the right type of support, we can encourage talent to flourish and ultimately exponentiate. And I'm looking forward to discussing this topic around how we set goals, because how we set goals is really the variable that most affects how we're able to meet those goals. It's easy to set grandiose goals, and I think we've all been there where we set these really impressive goals, but those goals aren't necessarily going to be useful if they're not realistic. In fact, they might have the opposite effect. They might reduce your motivation. So it's really important how you set your goals. So I'm excited to talk about specifics and how to make goals specific and better overall.
Yeah. And I'm Jaclyn Cook, founder of Jaclyn Cook Coaching, where I am a certified coach that focuses on leadership, productivity, and financial coaching. And I believe in the power of coaching as a tool to unlock potential and create new strategies for folks to increase their confidence in and out of work and have greater impact as well. I mirror Anna in that I'm a big fan of goals. Like I said, they're fun. But also the idea that it can be transformational to actually be clear and name them and be specific. I think, to Anna's point, the difference between a dream and a goal is what we're going to talk about today. And there's so much power that can come from being able to articulate these things and then put a path forward. So I'm really excited to get into it and hopefully give you some tools to actually set some goals rather than dreams.
That's a great slogan for our episode today. The difference between a dream and a goal.
Let's say you set some goals to achieve your dreams rather than set some goals rather than dream. Ignore your dreams, just set goals.
Yeah, take your dreams into a goal by actually setting some clear, defined paths to get there.
I love it. Well, let's keep it fun, Jaclyn. So I'm going to keep it on you. What?
Fun one.
Make sure we have jokes throughout. What are some of the most common problems or opportunities that you see when leaders are setting goals?
Yeah, it's like a good reality check. So we talk about this like it's fun, but it's hard. It is hard. And within different organizations, it's a spectrum of challenge. And so a couple things that I've seen in working with clients, one is the culture around folks. So truly, is there a direction from leadership? Does the company have a vision? Is there anything that you're able to have as a vision to be defining your goals around in the first place. I know, especially with middle management, this could be a real challenge if you just kind of feel lost or have lack of direction. So that's one thing that organizationally comes up. And then I also see that from the actual element of putting energy and time into this. So this could be something that's easily disregarded. We're just doing our job every day. We know what we're supposed to do. We don't need to set goals, but goals can be really motivating. Goals can be really aligning. And so also just really seeing people not take the time to actually think this is important as well. So yeah, we'll start with those.
Oh, I love that. And you brought the dream piece back right away. We have an opportunity to start with a vision, start with that dream, so you have some direction and put the time into it, right?
Yeah.
All right, Anna, let's hear our first tool. What is SMART and why is it effective? Why are we talking about it?
Yeah, good question. Good question. So SMART, it's an acronym. It's a framework that is very commonly used in goal setting in a lot of companies. So most people have probably heard about SMART goals at some point. The acronym stands for specific. Let's see if I remember all of these without tripping up on these. So SMART, so specific, almost did it right away. Measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So what that means is we want our goals to be, according to that framework, specific enough that we know what we're going for, measurable, so we know how we are tracking against the goal, attainable in that they're actually realistic, we can achieve that goal. Again, dream or reality, is it a dream or is it an actual goal? And then the relevancy, is it relevant to my own goals at work, for example? Is it relevant to my team's goals at work? Is it relevant to the company's goals overall? So really that piece of relevancy. Why am I working on this goal? How does it help me achieve whatever it is I'm trying to achieve? And then the time boundness. So that's also a really important element of goal setting, is that they are time bound and not just into infinity, because how are you going to track progress? How are you going to know when you've actually achieved the goal if it's not time bound in some way? So that's really the framework at its simplest, and it's really effective because it just ensures your goals are things that you can realistically achieve, and you have those measures to help you see that you are realistically making progress towards that end goal.
Absolutely. And I like SMART also because it's kind of easy to be like, make it smarter. It's just a really quick little thing. I will say, and I'm curious y'all's perspective on this. For me, when seeing SMART applied in the workplace, even if you're not using the acronym SMART explicitly, like you're not directly discussing it, you're discussing it. So anytime you're trying to clarify a goal, align on a goal, struggling on a goal, either with yourself or with a team member, you're probably walking through that list. So may as well have it memorized, as Anna does, may as well actually checkbox through it, right? Can you think of any scenario where we're not using SMART and we're defining goals? I'm curious. I guess if we're defining vision, right?
Yeah, if it's more of a vivid vision, right, where it's more like this is the concept, but that again isn't a goal. That's not meant to be. So I think the SMART is just the most simple, basic, but also always applicable.
Yeah.
Silly. One of our listeners tell us when it's not.
Yeah, there you go. Silly question. Of course, Anna and Jaclyn love SMART. They're here today. You think of a time where you don't like SMART. So for those of you listening who've heard of SMART before, I learned about it in my undergrad degree. So it's probably come up before and you're not applying it. This is the time, right? So let's get into the formula. Let's make it more specific, if you will. Jaclyn, when we say specific, what do we mean? How specific should leaders be?
Yeah, it needs to be specific enough that it's objective. And I do think this actually trips up leaders because they say they said something, but that's like the essence of miscommunication oftentimes, or assumption. So it needs to be clear. It needs to be objective. It needs to be clear of knowing you can accomplish it. Like, what is it specifically that you're trying to accomplish? So there's no ambiguity. And like if I was going to give an example here. So the difference between saying something like, we need to release product features soon. Okay, product features is specific, like that is a thing, but that isn't specific enough that there is ambiguity. If I did one, did I do it? So if we said we need to launch 5 new product features that improve engagement with our users or in retention or something, that really is like, well, what are we really focused on? There is so much less ambiguity at that moment, right? And so maybe it takes 2 extra minutes, 3 extra minutes to actually think about it and challenge yourself. Is there anything that could be misinterpreted here? Could be the gut check, or could anyone walk into the room and be clear on what we're doing? That's another way to say, is it specific enough that anyone else could like hear this and be like, okay, that's what they're doing. So starting there is like the foundation, and take an extra minute to be specific.
I love that. Specific enough, it's objective, and anyone else can understand what you're doing. Absolutely. Does everyone know the alien peanut butter jelly sandwich example? I brought this up on a call the other day and someone looked at me like I was out of my mind.
I have no idea what that is.
Oh, yes, you do. Okay, Chelsea, share. I think that's a great example.
No, so, Jaclyn, you share. I'm curious if we know the same thing. Let's see how specific I was.
Well, I don't know if I could do it because it's the idea of like, how would you, well, I haven't said alien. I think it's how would you just teach someone how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? So it's the difference between saying like, well, you like make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but that's not actually specific. You have 2 slices of bread. You spread peanut butter on one side. This might be controversial, but peanut butter on one side, jelly on another side. And then you put the 2 slides together and you have a sandwich. And it could probably get more specific than that, but that is
right, because you're not
different.
saying which sides you're putting together right now.
You're right. The same. Yeah, they need to come together. Thank you. Perfect example. So, I mean, that's a huge difference in saying like make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Anna might have 2 different slices. Like, I don't know how Anna makes peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So I don't know if that's how you would say it, Chelsea. You might want to add a line or 2, but that's a great example.
That's how I remember it. Thank you for validating that that's still relevant. For those of you who are not millennial or above, tell me like I'm 5 is another way of using the alien peanut butter jelly sandwich example. Also, I love that it could be controversial. If you are listening to this and you happen to not put peanut butter on one slice of bread and jelly on the other and combine the 2, I would love to learn how you make a PB&J. That is great. All right, so specific enough, someone else can understand it, and Jaclyn even gave us an example of how to test that. So, Anna, on to you with my favorite topic from Stephen Covey. How do you make goals measurable? And of course, this is a leading question because I want you to talk about lead and lag measures.
Yeah. Kind of knew where that was going. All right. So measurable means that you are able to measure if you are meeting the goal or not. So lead and lag measures are really helpful there. And like you said, Stephen Covey uses these, and I'm not sure if he's like the one who created them from the beginning or not, but either way, they use them. I think they call the lead measure like the visionary, almost like the dream goal, the big goal. And the lag measure is really the measure that's telling you how it's like the piece of history. It's the thing that's telling you, did you meet that visionary goal? So they talk about things like revenue, profit, quality, customer satisfaction being like the lag measure, and then the lead measure being the thing, the bigger thing, the the bigger thing, the visionary goal, the thing that you're actually trying to accomplish. And so, for example, if I want to become, like, let's say the fastest sprinter in the world, that would be my lead measure. That's the thing I'm leading with, the goal that I'm tracking, the goal I'm trying to achieve. And my lag measure would be the actual timestamp on my sprint. So when I've sprinted, the timestamp on my sprint. I can't talk today. Again, it's like 6 p.m. and I've had a full day of work here in between, so I'm just stumbling all over my words here. Okay, sprinting. So timestamp, I've sprinted, and that's what's going to tell me, am I actually the fastest in the world right now? The lead measure is something that you can actually influence. So it's the type of goal where you have the ability to impact how you're actually going to accomplish that goal. So if I'm sprinting, if I want to be the fastest sprinter in the world, how I train to accomplish that goal is in my influence and in my control. Whereas the timestamp, how fast I actually do sprint, is not in my control. That's just something that there's a stamp on. It's a measure. It's something that is telling me how I actually did. So that's the difference between a lead and a lag measure. And they are necessary to help us understand how we are tracking against the goal. So you want to have the goal, and then you want to have an understanding of how you're actually meeting that goal. So that's where they're really helpful. Chelsea, I feel like I'm leaving out things here because this is your favorite topic and the thing you always like talking about. And I feel like I just rambled on and
you're not
if I missed something here.
No, you're actually not. I love the sprinting example. How I train is the lead measure. I have influence over it. How fast I run is the lag measure. It's just so clear. I also ran cross country and track, so maybe this is just clear to me personally. I'd be curious for a challenge on either to you or Jaclyn, and I don't have a specific example in mind, so I'm just throwing this out there. But how do we apply this to work? And I'd say for anyone listening, start with an example that is more obvious to you to sort of have as a metaphor in your head. So I love, and I'm going to use this, if you don't mind, Anna, the sprinting example. It's more obvious to me. It's like a clean metaphor. I have it in my head, how I train versus how fast I run. As lead versus lag. So for work, let's say I have a revenue target. We want to hit $1 million in annual recurring revenue this year. What are work examples using the sprinting metaphor for leads and lags?
Well, the million is the lag measure, and what you do to accomplish that million is the accomplishing the million is the lead measure. And then because that's in your control, you can control what type of work you do as a team or as an individual. I don't know what your work looks like, what you're doing there. So you can influence what you're actually doing to make that million happen. Mm-hmm. That's in your control. So same as if you are trying to increase the traffic on your website, you want an increased traffic on your website, then the click rate could be your lag measure, and what you do to accomplish the increased click rate would be in your influence. So the lag is the click rate, and you're trying to increase the traffic to your website, which is the lead measure. So really then it would be, am I doing more paid marketing? Am I writing more blog posts? The concrete things I'm doing to get there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Maybe less fun than running a race, but it still applies. Jaclyn, did you have something to add?
Yeah. And I've also heard, I think it's like inputs and outputs, and also just be a way that think about it too. So like, to your point, what can you do to actually influence it? In the revenue example, it could be, if you're into like the dials per day, it's like whatever the inputs are that ultimately drive that output could be another way of looking at it too, in a work setting or in life and running too.
Definitely. With this one of my favorite things to explore with leaders is, what are you tracking mostly? Are you only tracking lags? Are you only tracking outputs? Are you only tracking KPIs? Or are you additionally tracking leads and inputs and efforts you have influence over, like Anna said? And if you track or discuss one more than the other, does it start to support your team? And I'm curious, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's necessarily a rule. There's not like a specific need to have this many leads and this many lags to make it a measurable goal. I know in the past at companies I've worked for, we have set standards on that just to give managers guidelines. It was specific to the team. It was specific to the company. So yeah, I think you can be flexible there, but it is fun to discuss with leaders and just start to observe as the coach, like, oh, you're only talking about lags. You're not talking about leads. Let's see what shifting that perspective would do. Jaclyn, what do you think there?
Well, I kind of think it goes to the next piece too, which I'll touch on, but that can be helpful because it can be motivating along the way, right? A $1 million revenue target, it might take all year. Like that might be just so big that am I making progress week to week, quarter to quarter? And like we know if there's a lack of feeling progress, like motivation can start to really slump, or if you don't know that you're progressing. So it kind of speaks to making it achievable. But I think that's spot on, but having that combination, so you know where you're going, but knowing how you're tracking towards that can help with the motivation and also the alignment, going back to like, are we clear that we're actually hitting those pieces so that we aren't off at the end of the year by $500,000 or something. So absolutely.
Perfect segue. Give us
Tee
the
that up.
definition. Yeah. What does it mean for these goals to be achievable? And you talked about motivation, but maybe if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah. And this is like Chelsea said, it is case specific. It depends on the way your team is functioning, the way your company defines goals. But I think it's really important to just pay attention to kind of the boots on the ground. Like, what are the skills on the team? What do you have that's going to help actually drive towards that ultimate measure? Some things of like, is it realistic hours wise? Like if some like project management, things like that, where you can actually see we're setting people up for failure. This is a 70-hour project and we are giving you 40 hours. Good luck. Like that is completely demotivating. And I know that happens a lot. I think in work, we set these unrealistic expectations and it can be really demotivating. So that's why, again, SMART is so great, because is it attainable? Is it achievable? Let's actually ask that hard question. And I think that hard question really stems from the leader and being in tune with their team and the other expectations around them. So what are the skills? What motivates them in general? So like, how could we design the goal so that it actually aligns to their motivation as individuals or as the team? So asking ourselves, like, how possible is this? Is kind of what I like to think of as the stress test, or what needs to be possible for this to be achieved might be the other way of looking at that. And that can help you determine what needs to be adjusted. And again, it could be the measurement. It could be, okay, we said 5 things, we're going to do 4 things. It doesn't mean we blow it out of the water, but it's just the subtle stress test I think is really important to ask.
I love that. What needs to be possible for this to be achieved? Kind of working backwards almost. Here's the goal. Can we do all these other things to achieve it? If y'all are open to sharing, I'm curious, and I'll start with personally, either with work or other goals, like what does achievable mean to you? And I will say for me, if the goal is just like an obvious thing I'm going to achieve, it feels more like a checkbox. So I don't love those. I definitely like them hard to achieve, but I would argue more like 80-90% achievable for myself personally and my own motivation. Like I want it challenging, but I want it something I'm pretty sure I can achieve without some reasonable natural force getting in my way. And I know this is different for everybody. So if y'all are open, how do you think about that?
For me, it definitely needs to be a stretch goal as well. I mean, if it's something that's just too easy, then like you said, it feels more like just a checkbox item. It's not going to feel like a goal because I'm not going to be making an effort to actually achieve that. It's going to be more just something I do. But then again, going to the achievable question, if it's too far off, if it's too much of a stretch goal, or if it's a stretch goal, if it's a goal that's so long term and constantly pushing me to stretch, then that's also going to be difficult in terms of motivation, because I might not have the energy to keep stretching for a very long time. So again, is it achievable? Is it actually realistic in terms of the stretch? But definitely need the stretch. And if we think about even things like getting into a flow state, that requires that it's a little bit challenging for you. So I would definitely say that for me, at least, there needs to be some form of stretch to it. If it's personal development related goals, at least, then there's of course going to be the kind of goals that are more checkbox, that relate to your work, that you just need to get done. And even with them, making them SMART is important so that you know how you're tracking against the goal. But at least when it comes to personal development, they need to be a little bit of a stretch goal.
What would you say is your % likelihood of achievement, Anna?
I don't know. I think it depends on the goal, and I think it depends on how long, like how long I'll be working towards that goal. Like it depends on the context of the goal, I would say.
Jaclyn, what about you?
My brain kind of went to even a non-work setting. So I think another side of this could be depends on what kind of goal it is. So a flip of this is if it's something that you need to break down to such small steps to make it actually possible. Sometimes it needs to be easy. And the example of like running, people talk about, like, if you want to become a runner, you actually make it so simple that like, it's just about putting on your shoes for the first week. You don't even go anywhere, but just put on your shoes. And so I think if it's work related, like, I think it's true, but it needs to have some element of like, it needs to be a stretch. It needs to be possible. You need to feel set up for success, and success needs to be defined by a little bit of challenge, but not a level of pressure constantly. Cause I don't think we work well under that over a long period of time, like Anna's saying. But my brain went to, even if it's more personal, maybe this applies at work too, but sometimes it actually needs to be so simple that you can make sure that you feel success doing it until you get that streak, because there's some psychology around that as well. And so that you build up your own motivation. So kind of the flip side of it, but I think it depends on what the goal is, and it's personal then at that point to recognize what you need to actually have success.
But in that kind of example, if your example is that you are aiming to like start running and your first week is just putting your shoes on, I mean, that would be kind of a stretch goal for you, know, that you're actually becoming that you're actually starting this new habit. So no, I totally get that though, on the habits front, that if you're building a new habit, if you're changing something about the way you do things already, absolutely needs to be like super simple, like broken down into super simple pieces that don't feel like an effort.
Right.
But then that you're able to still see your progress in moving forward in those and building up that momentum, like you said, in terms of motivation and progress, that you're seeing that, so that you're actually tracking towards that stretch goal.
Right. Spot on.
So for all the leaders and people managers listening to this, you just got 3 very different opinions, right? Which is the point. Your team is going to be made up of, if you're lucky, us. But if you're unlucky, other people. No, I'm kidding. But either way, your team is made up of very unique individuals who are going to have very different definitions of what achievable means. Like Jaclyn's thinking about habits and making those something that are small and that you can do habitually. Anna's thinking about stretch and the duration of time it'll take before the goal is accomplished and what the goal is about. I immediately gave you a percentage. I was happy about that. So I'm glad. I was really hoping we weren't going to give the same answer. Thank you for drawing that uniqueness. All right, let's move on to the R. Anna, how does relevant play a role here?
Well, the goals need to be relevant. There needs to be a purpose to them, the why. So I'm going to go for a work setting again. If you're given a goal, if you're deciding on a goal with your, well, ideally you're never just given a goal, you actually have some input into what the goal is. But whatever the situation, you have a goal that you're supposed to work towards as an individual contributor. If you don't see the point in that goal, if you don't see that it's relevant to your team's goals, to your own larger context of goals, your role, the company's goals in general, then you're very likely to not be very motivated by that goal if you don't see why you're actually working on that thing and working on accomplishing that goal. So that relevancy is important for motivation, that you actually see why it's meaningful that you're putting that effort in, especially if it's something that's more of a stretch and something that's going to push you a little bit into a stress zone. Then if you're not really seeing the point in it, the why, the purpose, the meaning, then you're quite unlikely to be motivated to put your best effort in.
Definitely. Why does this goal matter? And I'm not going to do our examples this time again, but like think about how unique our definitions of achievable were, our definitions of relevant and why it matters are going to be just as unique. So your teams are too, right? Okay. Time bound, the T, the last letter is smart. This one is maybe more obvious. So Jaclyn, make this tricky for us. When does time bound become more important?
Make it more complicated. Well, I'm going to start with not forgetting it though. So I kind of go back to, oftentimes people are like saying something, but just don't forget to make a time bound. So, well, maybe the obvious things are easily forgotten. So, and be clear as well, like when specifically it's needing to be done. But I think the things that make it tricky could be the unknowns to that, right? So maybe it is what is outside of your control, which can make it more complicated. It could be a false sense of urgency, could also make it complicated too. It could be, I would also say that it could be like mixed understanding of your priorities as well. So if you're not actually highlighting when something's due in contrast to something else, like it could be complicated too. So I think it's important that you always name it and be really clear about it, and then recognize what could influence it or what else needs to be a factor in that as well.
That's a really good point. The point about the urgency, because that's so often so emotional, and then the priorities. So if my sense of urgency comes from my own priorities, and that's an emotional reaction for me, the sense of urgency, then that might influence how, if I'm your manager, that how I'm setting your goals. And that's really worth considering, the priority and the sense of urgency then. When you are setting your own goals and presenting them to someone else as well, or talking about them to someone else, especially when they impact someone else, then really thinking through that piece of it as well.
Yeah. And it could be, maybe that's part of the conversation. As an example, we're so cross-functional in our work these days. So, and I think we highlighted a few minutes ago, maybe these aren't done in a vacuum, right? This is not a dictate. Often we aren't encouraging this to be dictated per se. And so truly having that be part of the conversation is an important tool to be able to have. So communication is really important in all that we're talking about here as a kind of cornerstone as well.
Love that. The time bound is not just an easy T. If they don't convince you, I don't know what will. Okay, let's play with a couple quick examples before we wrap up. So I'm going to present you an example of a goal. And these are examples of goals I have actually discussed with coworkers and leaders that I've worked with personally, and we've even considered them goals. So I'm bringing them to the experts. Please analyze my goal using SMART and fix it. These are terrible goals. Okay, Jaclyn, you're first. A goal I have said before out loud, and I apologize to anyone who heard this from me. This quarter, we're going to exceed our sales targets. Help.
Woo, ready to go, clear as mud. Okay, well, I'm going to start with a little bit of what's good. There is some time-bound element this quarter. However, I take it up a notch by being more specific. So is it by the end of the quarter? Is it by mid-quarter? Is it by a certain date? So you can always make that a little bit more specific, or a little bit more time-bound. And then what it's not is not very specific, right? So, or measurable. So, I feel bad now because you named it as like something you've said, so now I feel like I'm talking at you. But
I said it was bad. I said it was bad. You're helping me. You're the doctor.
So we're talking about sales targets. So that's clear, but what are the sales targets? And I'm kind of interplaying measurable and specific here, but like what specific piece of the sales target? Or is there a specific measurable number? We talked about revenue earlier. Like, is there a quantifiable number, dollar amount that we're actually trying to hit? And then that would help inform if it's achievable or attainable, right? Like at this point, I have absolutely no idea, because are you hoping that we double our sales targets? Are you hoping we increase by 10%? Probably a significant difference to how achievable it actually is, which is why these are all very important, in, like individually, but together. And then did I miss one? Measurable, attainable, realistic. Well, I guess that would determine if it's realistic as well, right? Those again kind of interplay with each other. So then if it's only 10% and last quarter we increased by 8%, oh, it's pretty realistic. And then how's it connected to what we care about, right? Like how is this, I'm commission based, so I'm pretty motivated because our sales targets means I'm making more money. And so understanding that, or the greater why, like we have funding expectations, or we have something that's also highlighting what's so important. So a lot of opportunity, Chelsea, good luck, take it and bring it back to us later.
Amazing. To the panel of experts. So if you're a leader who's saying something like or similar to this quarter, we are going to exceed our sales targets, you're not alone. I've done it too. Make it smarter. Like Jaclyn said, it only hit the T, none of the other letters. If you couldn't imagine I could do it, I'm going to give you an even worse example of a goal that I have used in the past. So Anna, maybe you can just rip this one apart.
Thank you.
We want to be the leading coaching company.
Okay, that's a goal. That's a goal. It's not a very specific goal. Okay, we want to be the leading coaching company. Like, okay, so let's start with specific. It's not specific. If you're making it more specific, it would be something like maybe we want to be the leading startup coaching company in Finland, or something like that, because you don't have any specificity around what you're talking about here. What does leading coaching company mean? In what space, or even in what geographical area? What are we talking about? So And also, what do you mean leading? Do you mean in terms of like revenue, in terms of, if we think about this startup example, for example, am I working with the like hottest startups in Finland right now? Am I like, what is the measure of being leading? Do I have the most revenue? I need something more there. So I am making it more specific. Sorry, my chair is hitting my desk here. By saying I want to be the leading startup coaching company in Finland. What that means is I want to be trying to make it more specific.
I think you did.
I want to be the more. I want to be the most searched. I want to be the most searched startup company, startup coaching company in Finland. Then that would be measurable as well, right? Most searched. And then we want to make it achievable. So is that achievable? That kind of depends on what my search ranking is right now. If I'm 30th on the list, then maybe not. But if I'm 5th on the list, then you would probably be able to make that happen, kind of depending on the time frame here, though. So we'll probably need to look at that when we come to the T. Then the relevancy depends again on what it is I want to accomplish, and what my starting point is, what my goal is overall. If your objective is to grow financially, then being the most searched for startup coaching company would not be the most relevant goal. But if my goal is to build my brand as a coaching company, specifically directed towards startup, if that is my ultimate goal, then being very searched for would obviously be a sign that my brand is getting some traction and that I'm making some progress there. So then we come to the T, the time bound, and here might be that depending on where we are now, maybe end of year. So by end of year, I would like my startup coaching company to be the most searched for coaching company in Finland.
So as Anna graciously shared, I'm missing every letter of SMART in that goal. So thank you, Anna. In just a few words, because I want to keep us on time, Anna, what would you want the audience to take away today?
That goals should be specific and according to the SMART framework, really, so that you can actually see that you are making progress, so that you can stay motivated, so that you know what you are working towards and you have actual tangible things to be working towards.
Awesome. And Jaclyn?
Yeah, I'd actually say that this doesn't have to be a mystery. Just take some time, use the acronym, and you'll probably be surprised how easy it is to actually build a SMART goal.
Wonderful. Well, thanks y'all for joining today, and have fun setting your goals, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Coaches Take on Work through your favorite streaming service so you don't miss a future episode. We are Coaches Take on Work, and for this episode's hot take,
goals are fun. Goals are fun. That should be the takeaway.
There we go.